Downtown Fargo, where culture, creativity, and community collide. You've heard the headlines. Now hear what's really happening. Bringing the best of Broadway direct to you. The stories, the people, and the places that make downtown the heartbeat of our city. This is Rocky's Downtown Hour with Rocky Schneider.
Happy Friday, everybody. This is Rocky Schneider on Rocky's Downtown Hour. We got a full show for you today here with looking ahead to the June 9th election with early voting starting next week. We're going to have Senator Josh Boschee, who's running for mayor, on the show, and we're also going to have Joe Deutsch, who's running for another term on the Park District, and we're also going to have sitting Park District member Zoe Absey to kind of ask. I think she's the youngest female elected official in city history or something like that. So we'll kind of ask her about, like, okay, how do you get into office, decide to do that, but also, like, why is it so important to get out to vote? And I think she knows that as well as anybody. She didn't just get out to vote. She put her name on a ballot, and we respect everybody that does that. But first, I'll give a couple quick updates. Really excited about June, not just because we've had 90-degree weather, and I think everyone's feeling it and feeling happy and good. Everyone smiles more when it's nice like this. But we have the Burger Royale in downtown Fargo all of the month of June. And so we have 16 different restaurants competing for the best burger. You can go anytime throughout the month. And on Monday, on June 1st, there's a kickoff event at 11 a.m. It's a free event at the Fargo Theatre, and they're going to be playing Bob's Burgers, the movie. And so if you're a fan of the show, or maybe you're not, you can bring it out. All ages is fine, free admission, and then you get a kind of a passport to try all the burgers. And they do have a thing. If you try all 16 burgers, you get a free T-shirt. So 16 burgers may seem like a lot, but what I've found is it's a great way to bond with friends or coworkers, and you go out and you split a burger in half or twos or threes, and then you can, it's a lot easier to get to 16 if you're splitting them up a little bit. So anyways, have fun with that. And then I also want to update, because it was a pretty major city commission meeting on Tuesday this week. If you hadn't had a chance to watch it, it's a good one to go and watch, because I think, this commission, especially with Mayor Mahoney finishing up his longevity on there, and a couple three of commissioners running for mayor, they want to get a lot done before the election too. So one of the things on there was the convention center update. It's down to 2 projects, and a lot of debate between Bruhala and the Civic Center locations. You can watch that. They kind of said they needed more time, and I think there was a lot of consternation about that. I have some consternation about that. I worry how much this bleeds into the next commission, not because I don't trust the next commission. It's just this is the group that's worked on it. They're the ones that need to make the decision, in my opinion. And so anyways, feel free to weigh on that. We have another month to weigh in on it. So watch that. It's a good update. I think it'll be great for our community. I think there's a lot of misinformation about convention centers out there as well. And this is about bringing over 100,000 people to our community that are simply going to come here and spend money and then leave and then talk about our community. So we have to figure out, one, how do you maximize the economics of that? Not just for the convention center. The convention center itself is not supposed to be this huge profit deal. It's supposed to bring 100,000 people so they spend money at local businesses and stores and hotels. That's how we generate the economic return on this. That's where the real economic return comes from. Not that the site itself doesn't matter, but that's the smaller piece of the pie when we think of tourism. Tourism is a different entity altogether. So just pay attention to that as you look ahead. But also on there, I'm really excited about the Science Museum, and I could ask one of our guests about the Science Museum as well. I got involved with this a few weeks ago as they started looking at bringing it downtown to the Mid-America Steel site, which, if you're not familiar, is an old steel facility that was bought out 5-6 years ago as part of the flood protection efforts, right in the middle of downtown, right between the bridges, right between Fargo and Moorhead, sort of where our community started. So it's been this really exciting vacant lot. The problem is it needs a lot of environmental cleanup. You can imagine 100 years of doing steel. I have no idea what that is. Steel manufacturing. It's not the cleanest environmentally. So they got to do some cleanup. And so Senator Hoeven was down there on Tuesday night as well, walking the riverfront at a mental health bike event, which was just great, on the trail system there with Greg Tavine and Pat Crary and the All-American Trail North. And they got Senator Hoeven to come down. And I went down and met with Senator Hoeven after the commission meeting, got to tell him the exciting update that the city commission decided in a unanimous vote. Just want to point that out. We have 3 commissioners running for mayor right now, and they unanimously all agreed on this, which is saying something. They agreed that to start working with the Science Museum folks on getting that Mid-America site cleaned up and potentially being the site of the Science Museum. So we're really excited about that. And in studio with me right now is Senator Josh Boschee. And so Josh, welcome to the show. and you're running for mayor, but we'll talk about the mayor on the next segment a little bit. You're also Senator Josh Boschee, and you're also involved in the Science Museum a little bit, I think, right?
Yeah, I joined the board, I believe it was December last year.
Yeah, and I mean, why did you join the board of that? What excites you about a science museum?
Well, it's interesting. They had reached out to me. I know a number of the board members, and the executive director is a friend. And so they had reached out to see if I'd had interest in the board. And I kind of have a rule where I only serve on one board at a time, just because of the amount of time it takes. And so as I was considering a race for mayor, I just was like, I can't take this on. It wouldn't be fair to them. But the pitch they made and their request to join, and the excitement factor about what this science museum could do for our community, not just for those of us that live here, but again, folks coming to visit. I think of my family that comes from Minot, comes here for hockey tournaments or whatnot. They're looking for things to do. And then them talking about the educational component, tying it in with various industries, agriculture, tech, healthcare, workforce development, kind of integrating or introducing ideas to kids and young people of what the careers they can have. It got me excited, so it was hard to say no. So I said, yeah, I'll sign up and serve on the board, and it's been a great journey now, especially as the conversation about a potential location has evolved. We have a great relationship with Brandt Holdings, who out by Shields Arena had already dedicated some space for the Science Museum. And as they were exploring things with the convention center, they just said, hey, just so you know, there might be some shifting happening. So, we're okay if you go try to find the best spot for you too. Let's all work together to make this work for Fargo. And so now there's the Mid-America conversation. There's other communities reaching out. So it's evolving. It's great.
No, it's good to get to hear. We've heard a lot from you recently about the mayor's race and very, pointed city issues. And you have, 5 candidates kind of all pushing against each other. But I've had the pleasure of knowing you, 15 years or whatever it's been. And you've been, my representative and senator in my home district. So I've gotten to work with you both professionally as a lobbyist, as a citizen, and now as a radio host. Yeah. Great. And in downtown. So I've gotten to know Josh beyond his eloquent speaking ability and knowledgeable, on the issues. And so Science Museum is one of those things that it's fun to see what you're personally passionate about and to kind of get behind the screen a little bit, because elections are kind of nasty things, right? It's like they're a necessary nastiness of our democracy. That's how it works. But what I've appreciated is you've had to work in Bismarck with the same people for a long time. You learn to never burn a bridge, because you might vote against somebody one time, but immediately after you're going to have to be on their team.
Yeah, in a state of 800,000 people, again, we all either are related or played basketball against each other at one point, right? Yeah. So, exactly. We may disagree a lot of times, but there's going to be times where we agree, and we're going to need each other's support. And that's what's been so great about my experience out in Bismarck is, yes, the headlines are about the divisive issues or the things that are driving some conflict or really heated. 80% of the time, we're agreeing because we're funding education, or we're making sure that we got road money, or we're making sure that we can invest in North Dakota First with our, one-time oil resource money. And so, yeah, I've just, I think I treat people respectfully. I listen a lot. I certainly have my opinions, and I'll share that with folks, but I've learned never to do it in a way that's going to hurt someone's feelings or make them feel less than, because again, in the end of the day, we all were elected to represent our communities, and we should do the best we can with that.
And where my history working closest with Josh is Senator Boschee, is, on the diversion project, right? Flood protection obviously was our biggest issue. Now we're so excited to have that nearing done completion, but we had a really tough time in our Fargo and Cass County contingent all being on the same page, even being knowledgeable enough to disagree with each other. And you pulled in as a, caucus leader or whatever it was at the time, with Shannon Roars-Jones on the other side, pulling in for regular meetings, all the other legislators locally, to say like, hey, we need to get on the same page. And if not on the same page, at least on the same information. Absolutely. So that we can have reasonable disagreements and figure out the best solution. And so I've always appreciated that ability to sort of, they call it working across the aisle, but in North Dakota, it's like just working with your neighbor.
Right.
It's like you don't have to fight with your neighbor over everything.
Yeah, we're still going to live with each other. We're still going to see each other, whether you're serving in office or not, but also we all wear many hats. So it's not just your time in office. You might have a real estate deal with them, or you're going to do a business project in which they're hiring one of your family members, or, we're a state of 800,000 people. We're all really well connected, and I think we should just treat each other respectfully.
All right, when we come back, we're going to ask Josh about his mayoral campaign and what he sees for the future of Fargo. Welcome back to Rocky's Downtown Hour. I'm here with Senator Josh Boschee, who's running for the mayor of Fargo. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
For those who don't know Josh or why you're running, why don't you give us a little overview?
Yeah, I'm running for Fargo. We're at a pivotal time and an opportunity to kind of bring a new paradigm and some practical leadership to the city of Fargo. I really see the role of the mayor and the city commission as setting the vision for our community, working with everyone to understand where do we want to go, and then charging the city staff and working with our community partners to get there. I think we've seen over the last year specifically a lot of conflict within the city commission and unalignment in terms of where we're going, and so they're really managing problems instead of leading on them. So I think of our housing issues and the housing crisis that's being faced across the country, but specifically for us in downtown Fargo, how are we leading on that issue, not just managing it? Growth throughout our community that can also drive more revenue for the city and more homeownership and allowing people diverse options to live. How are we helping lead on that instead of just letting it happen?
You had a long debate last night. I watched most of it. It went on a long ways, so I did skip some questions. But I know you were asked a question about your legislative experience, and so we have 47 districts,
47
legislative districts. And when you go to Bismarck, you obviously represent your constituency, but you also have to represent the state. And I feel like that's similar to Fargo, where sometimes we get so parochial in Fargo about my neighborhood versus your neighborhood. But talk about how your legislative experience plays into that concept.
Yeah, I think especially for folks who are concerned about if we go to a ward system, that's kind of my defense of it is, in Cass County, we have 11 of those 47 legislative districts. So there's 33 legislators, all elected from their neighborhoods or their districts. But in the end, we have to work for the entire community. It's rare that I would vote against something that improves West Fargo, because in the end, it's going to improve Fargo, right? So we look at it as what's going to help our region, what's going to help businesses, because especially in a community like Fargo, someone might live in Fargo but work in West Fargo, or work in Minnesota and live in West Fargo, right? So we're just this kind of community where we have these boundaries, but the boundaries are really blurred in how people engage within the community and find their own success.
What have you learned going through the campaign process? Because you've been through, 3 campaigns, something like that now. And so with the mayor campaign, how has it been different? And what have you sort of learned that's improved your ability to be mayor?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, getting out throughout the entire city. My other races for legislature have been mostly North Fargo, and now as we've inherited downtown as part of our district, that's where a lot of my time and energy has been spent, 28 blocks by about 30 blocks. Now it's an entire city, 50 square miles. And so that's been good because I continue to hear from folks in other parts of the community. I've had to be intentional about getting out, especially to South Fargo, to hear about concerns folks have and opportunities and hopes. And, what I love about that conversation is engaging with, especially, I brought up things like the Rolt Farm neighborhood, or even down 52nd and University, kind of those neighborhoods. The things we've done downtown for community development, community engagement with groups like Folkways, what would it look like for us to bring a group like Folkways or another that's engaging that community about what do you want to see in development and community and culture in your community, so that people from downtown go there too. And we can kind of support these neighborhoods and these developments of making it more livable and exciting for people to choose different parts of the community to live in.
Yeah, I think that's one of the myth busting I try to do on the show about downtown is, there's an editorial in the paper about why does downtown get so much attention? And it's interesting, in my job, I don't represent necessarily the people that live downtown or work downtown or own downtown. It's you represent them all, but the downtown balloons during the day, right?
Right.
So many people work down there. And while I care about my own neighborhood where I live at night, I also care about where I work and stuff around me. I want to have amenities to walk to, go for a walk at lunchtime, go eat some good food, make sure it's safe when you're walking around, all these things. And so while downtown is not a ton of people that live there, there's a lot of people that interact with downtown that live all over the community.
Yeah, and we found when we have events downtown, the place explodes. Talking to business owners, that's what they want is more events. So the success of the Cocoa Crawl, whenever we have the farmers market, the St. Patrick's Day parade. And we know that those type of things also have an impact on the city budget. And those are conversations that are happening about, security and safety and cleanup and all that. And those are solutions I think we can get to. But in the end, it is driving vitality of our community. And for me, again, as much as I'm a downtowner myself and live and spend most of my free time there, it's how and if communities like that Rolt Farm corner of this or section of the city or Osgood or other parts want to do that too, how do we bring that conversation and support for that to happen?
Yeah, it's what the core neighborhoods have done too. If people don't know what core neighborhoods are, there's 5 or 6 around downtown, if you want to start getting in the outer circle of downtown, is they started making these neighborhood associations. And I belong to the Horseman one. There's a Roosevelt one, a Hawthorne one, trying to encourage new neighborhoods. But the city used to have a staff person in the planning department that just worked with neighborhood groups. And I believe that was cut or morphed into something else. And so trying to get that back would be so helpful, because I feel like it also is a good way to funnel information both to the community, both to their neighborhood, but also back to the commission.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it creates a feedback loop, but also it's where we can have real conversations about community issues. What does safety look like in 32nd Avenue and 45th Street? What are the major concerns down there? What is safety and opportunity look like for business owners in those different quadrants or sections of the city? So I love being a member of my neighborhood association. I'm also part of Horseman. I've been a member of Roosevelt when I lived up there. But it's really an opportunity for the community to talk about issues. And I think what we've learned in those associations is stop only joining or getting going when there's a crisis, like a school closing.
Right.
How do we continue the conversation so that we can drive decisions around redevelopment, drive decisions around how we can work with the city to improve our community and our quality of life within those neighborhoods?
Yeah, and I think, in some ways that's what I do for the city of Fargo. I run the business improvement district for the city of Fargo. We provide that feedback loop because downtown is big and dense. It's property tax base. It generates a lot. A lot of people work there, a lot of tourism. And so the city relies on that funneled feedback because they can't handle all those constituent feedback. And I feel like as a legislator, in North Dakota, you kind of do all the constituent services yourself. And a lot of legislators, you have a team that just does constituent services. The city doesn't necessarily have that. And I think that's why you're seeing some people in the public saying, we want more transparency or more ability to communicate, or public comment periods are becoming an issue. It's like, because they feel like that constituent services is missing.
Yeah. Well, and I think, again, when we look at the entire city, so someone made the comment and the connection to me last night. It was the first aha, right? We, at the beginning of the week, learned that Shields Home and Hardware on 13th Avenue is going to be closing. And at the end of the week, we found out that Hornbacher's Express on University is going to close. And talking to someone in that neighborhood, they're like, both sides of my neighborhood are being impacted by these things we depend on.
Yeah.
And while it's not the city's job necessarily to make sure someone stays there, but how do we help have a conversation to make sure we find someone else to come and fill that need in that space? Because even though I don't live near that neighborhood, I stop at Hornbacher's Express quite often on my way home from throughout town. I like going to the Ace Hardwares throughout town because they're great neighborhood hardware. I get someone who teaches me how to use the tools and help service them. And so, again, how are we having those conversations about what do people want to see in their neighborhoods, and how do we help partner and drive that? Again, we may not be bringing it. It's not our job, but it's our help. We can help facilitate those conversations and find resources.
So I was trying to add up on my drive out here to the studio today. And I think, I've worked with the city as close as anybody has over the last 20 years. I like to say I worked with the city before Mayor Mahoney was there, which, kind of dates me. But, do you know who Mayor Mahoney replaced on the city commission? I'll challenge you a tough trivia question. You like trivia?
I would say not on the
I'll
city.
let you think. I'll let you think on that one. But I think I've worked with 16 different members of the city commission now, which isn't that much over 20 plus years.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of rotation.
Turnover. Yeah. But anyways, it's good to have rotation. But I think they've all brought in different things. And I think of Tony Grinberg, who's one that went from the legislature to the commission. And he used to tell me, like, he thought it would be an easier transition than it was, where legislature, you're making high level decisions, not even bigger or smaller, just much more high level, more zeros behind things, more long-term impacts. You think in biennium budgets instead of 1-year budgets, just all the way down. And so what have you done to sort of prepare yourself? Because you're knowledgeable on the issues, but maybe not from the perspective of the city. So how have you been able to sort of morph your perspective of it?
Yeah, no, great point. And Mayor Mahoney has said that to me as we've talked about the budget. And I had coffee last week with Tony Grinberg, who, as many folks know, is currently on the county commission. And we talked about that transition. In what I'm preparing for is more, what I've learned is, especially at local government, is literally a vote happens on a Monday night and dirt starts turning on Tuesday morning, right? Whereas the legislature, we pass something, it doesn't even become law until months later. It doesn't even become implemented to maybe a year later. And that can be frustrating as a legislator. So I'm excited about the opportunity to actually really see impact and know that impact's happening sooner than later.
All right, Josh, we get in the last minute here. Tell us why people should vote for you for mayor.
Well, I want to bring my legislative experience of getting things done, working with people, finding solutions back to City Hall. So I'm asking voters to vote for me June 9th or early next week during the early vote locations. But as I've continued to say from the beginning through now, if folks want more of the same, there's plenty of options to vote from the candidates that are running. If you're looking for someone different, someone who's going to bring a fresh perspective and a new vision to Fargo, I'm asking for your vote.
Okay, and then for the people out there, if they want to get more information on you or get in contact with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, best way is go to joshforfargo.com. There's information about how you can vote and where you can vote, but of course there's information about me and then the links to my different social media platforms.
Perfect. Josh, Senator Boschee, thank you, and good luck in the election in 2 weeks from now.
Thanks, Rocky. Have a great day.
Take care. When we come back, we're going to have Zoe Absey with the Fargo Park District. Welcome back to Rocky's Downtown Hour. I have Zoe Absey in studio talking about the Fargo Park District.
Hi, Rocky.
Zoe, welcome.
Thank you.
How great is it to not have to run for an election this cycle? Isn't that great?
Oh my gosh, it's so great, but I still have a lot of anxiety, even without running.
So tell us, as a young person getting involved, for the audience out there, how is it important people vote, first of all?
Oh my gosh, extremely important. I think oftentimes primary elections, people don't think it's as important as the November general election, but I think sometimes local elections are even more important because it governs what you're doing in your hometown. Sometimes we don't see what things are happening on the federal level, or it takes a long time. Locally, changes can happen quickly. And so it really matters that you vote in June because you can actually reach out to those people most times and talk to them and get coffee with them.
So you don't have to do a long background, but who is Zoe Absey and now as a park board member?
Yeah. Grew up in Fargo, spent a lot of time downtown, and went to UND to study elementary education.
That's too bad.
Hey, UND is a great school, even though I went when there was no mascot. But anyway, went and after that I went into the Peace Corps for 2 years, which really helped with my dedication to public service through groups in college and then the Peace Corps. Coming back, I really wanted to get involved on the local level in the community that I was raised in and love.
That's great.
Yeah.
So what have you learned in 2 years at the Park District? What do people want out of their Park District? Have you figured it out yet?
Oh, gosh.
Everything?
I think it's always changed. Yeah, everything. And I think what I've learned is the Park District can't do it alone. That cross-sector collaboration between government, nonprofits, private, we all need each other to make sure our community has what it needs.
I know in this job especially, I've worked with the Park District. Well, I used to work for the Park District, my first 2 jobs. But,
fun.
I think what I've learned working with the downtown group is, we're rare, right? We're one of 2 states where Park District's its own entity.
Yeah.
And there's pros and cons to that. Where a lot of times I'm in a room working with the city on something and I think, why isn't the Park District in this room? And it's nobody thinks to ask sometimes, where they'll just try to go forward with it. I'm like, we could do this, but it seems like a park issue. I'm sure the park sometimes this doesn't seem like us. It's more of a city, so how do you handle that?
I think more information isn't a bad thing. So if we're invited to the table to know what's happening and to see if there's an opportunity for us to collaborate and be part of it, I think that's always a good thing. But I would agree. I think when most people are like, what do you love about Fargo or the city of Fargo? Oftentimes they're talking about park entities or amenities, which, so there is such a crossover between the two. So I totally understand where people maybe it's hard to see them as separate, but also we work so closely that we are one because we have the same goal ultimately is to make sure that our community has what they need.
And one of the things, to tie parks to downtown is some of the narrative lately has put neighborhoods against each other where downtown's become a separate entity. I'm like, downtown's everybody's neighborhood. It's where people go for culture and events. It's where a ton of people go to work. It's where our tourism is. But it's sort of like parks. If you have a neighborhood park, you can go to a differ't neighborhood park too. It's it's fun to go explore because they're all cool, but everyone's a little bit different, has a different swing or a different, zip line or something. It's they're for everybody. They connect the whole city.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. And we have over 150 parks in our community and
which one's your favorite? No, just kidding.
Gosh.
No, you don't have to answer that. It's okay.
That's a hard one. Yeah. But the Yunker Farm one, Rowe Farm is new and has a big cow you can sit on. So I really like that one.
Oh.
Yeah. But yes, I think pitting neighborhoods, I'm a downtowner, grew up in downtown. And if one area of our town is getting a bad rap or maybe isn't doing as well, we have to make sure that we're focused. We have to work together because if we all do better, we all do better and we all are successful. So I agree. I think every neighborhood park has something to offer. And I think everyone should start the summer off with going to all of them, seeing what they each has.
Yeah, maybe. Do you guys have any sort of passport? I feel like that'd be kind of a fun, scavenger hunt or like go get a stamp at each city park or something like that.
I was just talking to Susan about that yesterday, of how a lot of the state parks have that where you can get a stamp for each one, and how fun would that be? Because I think when I was campaigning 2 years ago, I learned about a lot of parks that, like the 123 Park in Madison neighborhood, or Cannon Park when I lived in Unicorn Park neighborhood. Just all of the different little parks in our neighborhoods.
We did a social media post about Oli Tangen Park
Okay.
on Earth Day. It's the smallest park in the city, I think. It's that little triangle park
Yeah.
outside NDSU's Renaissance Hall. And so it's like, it was something like even on Earth Day, the smallest green spaces matter or something
did
like
see
that was
that.
like our concept. Anyways, that was fun. But like everything matters
Yes, it does.
and it all
And
connects.
green space is great to have downtown, everywhere.
Yeah.
We need it.
I know Parks has been a great partner. I didn't want to imply that because I'm in meetings where you should be, but there are
No.
like, we have a regular monthly downtown task force that's like me representing, the bid in downtown with all like the department directors. But I'm like, you sort of miss out when you think about all the department directors, but there's not like the parks director there.
Yeah.
In any other city, like that would have been an obvious person to have at the meeting.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're not in the city team necessarily, it might be hard to, oh, wait, we need to invite this other person.
And we all get sensitive when we feel left out.
Oh, 100%.
Okay, so the parks, like it's crazy. I was on the, I don't know, master strategic plan, whatever it was, that committee group. Parks does an awful lot of different things. So it goes way beyond parks. And I think everybody kind of knows their aspect of it, right? I just signed my son up for baseball. Like I know you do sports stuff. I have a daughter who's now grown out of sports and she walks to the park, but also like people don't necessarily you're not invited to, I would say that's a critique anyways. You're not necessarily invited to come to the parks if you're not in an activity, even though it's very welcoming to it.
Yeah.
How do you get to those people that don't have that natural entry or inviting point anymore?
I think our team in the last 2 years since I've been on have done a great job, and we're expanding of community engagement to hear what do those gaps in folks want to see and what are they interested in, so that we can create those opportunities for that nice welcome, or that area where they can maybe try something different that's not a sport related activity. So I think community engagement has been really helpful to determine where are those gaps in services. But yeah, we have like a nature lab that's new this year for folks youth who are interested in maybe being outside but not sports. My niece is really excited this year at the Island Park show. There's going to be like a little mini makers market, so she gets to sell her crafts that she does. There's a Lego lab, like Lego opportunities for kids. We have so many different art classes, trying to make parks and recreation accessible for every kid, even if they're not interested in sports.
Because there really is, I mean, if you had the map up of all the parks, you said 150 plus or whatever, they're everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I mean, they are accessible to everybody.
But I understand if you're 15, maybe you don't want to go play on a slide or around 5-year-olds. So where are those opportunities for those kids?
Yeah, and then, I think your job as a park district too, or board member, is it's so tough because a lot of your board meetings are driven by, revenue and attendance and things you have to pay attention to for the different programs and centers and, pools and all those types of things. Really tough to quantify somebody enjoying running through a park or walking their dog through a park. How do you tie tax dollars to that passive enjoyment of a park?
Yeah.
It's not on your spreadsheet, right?
No, definitely not. And I think that's why the qualitative data is so important too, to back up the numbers, or if there aren't numbers, right? If we're getting surveys or hearing from folks when we're doing park renovations that they love the trails because that's where they run, or they love the green space because they like to hammock or picnic. I mean, we need to hear from community and want to hear from community.
Yeah, and the reality of just local government is it's so much complaint driven because it's tough to hear from people until they have something passionate.
Yeah,
Stub
and I
their toe
love the
about,
passion, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's why I also ran, is I want to hear from the community. And while maybe I can't change everything overnight or do something about it right away, I can advocate and share. So
after this election, you won't be the newest member, which is fun. But as you were the newest member at some point, how is it, good boards of every sort have longevity and new blood, right? You need to have a mix of everything. If you have too many, you get the good old boys network. If you have too many old timers, and if you're all new, no one has experience. How has that worked with you having sort of elders on the park board?
I've really appreciated having the longevity with some of the folks on the board, along with Aaron, who was also recently elected, being able to hear from about the history of the parks and, oh, this is why, this is what happened 4 years ago, and this is why we're doing this, or here's how this partnership came to be. And so I've found a lot of mentorship in the board currently. Aaron and I, along with other board members, help create an orientation and for new board members, because I think oftentimes on boards, sometimes that's not the first thing that we think about of creating. And so that was really helpful to work with Aaron on my experience joining the board and how it can only grow from there.
So what are some things you want people to know about parks that they might not realize?
Oh, what do I want people? We're more than just sports, kind of like what you were talking about, Rocky. We have so many opportunities for youth, seniors, adults to get involved. Scholarships are expanding and growing. They encompass more programs. They're not just for pool passes. They're if you want to do an art class, swimming lessons, senior programming, any of that can be covered by scholarships if they're eligible. And the application process is all digital now, which makes it easier for folks to apply.
So one question I like to ask guests that spend time downtown is to give love to something going on downtown that you're not connected to financially or personally, that you just enjoy. Could be anything. Doesn't have to be favorite, everything.
So it can't be Blackbird.
Yeah, probably not.
So what do I love about downtown? I just love, like I said, I grew up around downtown, and my first taste of freedom was riding my bike to the library before it was built, the library that was the transition library, and going to Zambro's and having a milkshake. But I love the community feel. I love how you can go downtown and you can see people you can meet new people. People are sitting around. People are conversing. They're enjoying the amenities that downtown provides. And so I think that is what I love about downtown.
Well, that sounds great. And just one last thing about downtown and parks. June 1st, the Island Park pool opens, which I know my family's very excited about.
Yeah.
The other pools open up June 8th, I believe.
Yep.
So get in early at the Island Park pool. Not Fargo schools, though, because Fargo schools will still be in service next week. But
yeah, so they still need to go to school. If they can come to the pool after.
So if you're not from Fargo, it's a great time to come during the day and hit up the pool before those Fargo students get there.
Or West Fargo kids.
All right. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you for all you do for us as a city. And when we come back, we're going to have Joe Deutsch, who's running for another term on the Park Board. Welcome back to Rocky's Downtown Hour. I'm joined with Joe Deutsch, who's running for another term on the Park District. I believe he was formerly known as DJ Duke Durham back in the day on the radio, and we're very excited to have him in studio with us. Joe, welcome to the show.
Rocky, I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So how long have you been on the Park Board?
Yeah, I've been on the Park Board for 20 years.
20 years.
Yeah.
And so we just talked with, the current newest member, and, you've been on there a long time. What haven't you been able to do that you want to do in the next 4 years?
Wow. Get right to it.
Yeah.
Huh? I think, let's take a step back and talk about, we've started putting processes into place, right? We started the master planning process. So as opposed to, I think we should do this next. I think we should do this next. We stopped and we put the master plan together. We figured out how far away each house is from a park that we have available to them, how far the pools are from it, and so we mapped out the city, and now we can go back and make sure that the pieces are in place so that we do have this park is 10 years old, this park is 5 years old, this park is 15 years old. Okay, this one should be being replaced so as opposed to dreaming the next big dream, right? Because I think in the last 2 years, putting the sports center out there and replacing beautiful Island Park pool in downtown Fargo, huge. Were huge projects. But at the same time, huge projects get people excited. But at the same time, as we're growing as a city, I think we need to constantly stay in front of that growth and make sure that we're putting in the paths in a new development, make sure that the developer identifies the space for the playground that they give to us so we can go in and put a playground, and therefore that playground's in that community before the houses even come in.
Yeah, no, I think I can totally appreciate that. I spent 11 years on the Fargo Planning Commission. The last thing we did was pass a downtown master plan, and I really wanted to see it get implemented, and I got off the commission, but then I got hired to do downtown stuff. So it's like, I can totally appreciate that you've built these plans. You want to see them implemented, but I think also just seeing them through, right? You've helped dream this up. The Island Park pool has been amazing. I think it was a huge success, and I think that success will just keep growing. The sports complex, I don't even think has yet seen its peak, right? I think as it starts to get more events there and more tournaments and all those types of things, Fargo's going to see the tourism benefit, the economic benefit, let alone the quality of life benefit.
100%. it would be foolish for us to say, oh, the sports center is open. Where are we headed next? I mean, the sports center is a big, big undertaking. I mean, the coolest thing in the world to me is walking through those double doors on a Saturday in the middle of February and seeing seniors, families walking on the walking track for free up on top, to see baseball, soccer, you name it, going on the turf below the walking track, to see families taking their children to an outdoor playground, to see 6 full pickleball courts with people waiting in line, to see volleyball nets that can turn into basketball hoops, to turn back into volleyball nets in mere seconds, running tournaments on 8 courts, to see 2 sheets of ice. I mean, it's unbelievable, and figuring out a way to continue to program more and utilize what we have out there to its extreme is. But I mean, just think about the fact that we were spread out from elementary schools, high schools around trying to use gymnasiums because that was the spaces, and it was spread out all over the place. And to be able to bring everybody into one space and to have it belong to the park district, and to have it to be able to be utilized the entire day, all weekend long, is just awesome in our climate. I mean, we have to be realistic. Some people don't want to recreate outside in the middle of February. So,
okay, so taking one step back on
Sure.
who is Joe Deutsch.
Yeah.
You've run a few elections. You know, you're the same guy you always been, but you have also matured. You're now not the young whippersnapper anymore. Now you're the got all
Zoe,
this.
she's the young
Yeah,
whippersnapper.
you got all this experience on there now, and so I just kind of who is Joe, and why are you putting your name on the ballot if you had to think fresh?
Yeah, I mean, who's Joe? Joe is born and raised in Fargo. I rode my bike to El Zagle to go golf. I rode along the river trail to go play baseball at Michelson when I was a little kid. But at the same time, I'm a physical education recreation professor at NDSU, and Fargo Parks has been my life for the last 20 years. I try to stay fresh and new with teaching college kids and helping them get into some of those positions, and obviously coaching my kids sports throughout the years, and just that institutional knowledge, I think, is valuable to understand where we've came from is how we continue to move forward. And
yeah, and I mean, I appreciate, because anybody that has passion for public service is wins in my book. But to do it for 20 years, like, you put up with a lot too. I mean, it's tough to be an elected official, but it's also fun at times, and you get to see dreams come through. And I think that's just amazing. So I appreciate you putting your name on the ballot. If you talked about sort of the big things that have happened, what do you see, maybe not even in these 4 years, but what is the next big thing? What I think it might be is, now that the diversion's in place and growth isn't going to be where you're putting all your time and effort making sure all these things are going in. Now you have to look at your existing city and kind of go, okay, what do we do with our existing footprint? But what's the 10, 20-year plan?
Yeah, I mean, like you just said, as we put this master plan together, and we mapped out the city and seeing where we're continuing to grow and staying in front of that growth, it's also utilizing our spaces. For example, we put the Northside softball complex out there. By putting the Northside softball complex out there, we took recreational adult softball out of the Lindenwoods and out of those spaces and turn those back into neighborhood parks and youth baseball or softball fields, and turn those parks into neighborhoods parks. Another perfect example is Yunker Farm. That land has been ours the entire 20 years that we've been up there, and it's been extremely underutilized. And besides, the community gardens and the children's museum that was in that house, but the children's museum has moved on, and we've renovated that house, and now we're programming that house. We moved the dog park to the north end down there, and we've got a master plan for them. We have a master plan for Island Park separate too. So we have master plans for the bigger pieces within those pieces and designing them. Like, for example, when we were going to replace the Island Park pool, we were afraid that people didn't want the pool to go down. So we surveyed them and found out, they said, take it down for a year because we want it back where it came from.
Yeah, and I'll just say in our last minute here that I've really appreciated your leadership on making sure downtown, as it's become more and more urban, it's a different look than the suburban areas of parks. You have to think, what is urban needs parks? And the partnership at Broadway Square is something that we've spent a lot of time dealing with, trying to figure out how to make that work with the different private partnerships. And it's different, and different takes more time. It's not a copy and paste from everything else. And I think we've seen the success of that, and just appreciate that. And I love our Island Park and river trails, everything else we have access to downtown.
Yeah, I appreciate you, honestly, and all the hard work you did to come in and help with our Broadway Square situation, because we have shops down there, we have fun things to do, but for the family component, that's the big one.
Joe,
right
if
there.
they want to learn more about you, where do they go?
Yeah, Joe Deutsch for Fargo Parks at on Facebook, www.joedeutsch.com.
Perfect. And everybody get out and vote June 9th and have a great weekend.
Thank you.